Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for the Customizing Foundation Maps Professional 2.0 webinar. We're really excited to be here with all of you today. So let me start by introducing myself. I'm Nina Gancheva, Manager of Strategic Philanthropy at the Foundation Center. And I have been working at the Foundation Center for just over 6 years now. I started out working out of our data department for about 4 years, so I'm very familiar with the data that we collect. And I've also been on the Foundation Maps launch team. And now I'm working closely with foundations and different membership groups on customizing Foundation Maps for the issues that they care about. So I'm really excited to be talking to you about that today. Today I'll be showing you how you can use Foundation Maps Professional 2.0 and how foundations and philanthropy networks have customized it to meet their particular needs. So after I show you Foundation Maps Professional 2.0, I will go over 3 different customized maps. One which is San Francisco Foundation's enhanced e-reporter map that they've used for their annual report, and then 2 custom issue-based maps about funding for veterans and funding for early childhood development. So what is Foundation Maps? I thought we might start with that. Foundation Maps, for those of you who don't know or who aren't already subscribers, is a data visualization platform for philanthropy. It's used by grants management and program staff at foundations. It's used by nonprofits, researchers, and consultants to find and visualize information about our sector. So for example, you can use it to scan the landscape, to see who is funding what where, to identify gaps in funding, or to reveal sector trends. And it has free subscription and custom components. So I'll be going over all of those with you today. So what we're looking at right now on the screen is Foundation Maps Professional 2.0. It's the subscription-based platform, Foundation Maps, that I'll be showing you in a minute. And I just wanted to give a quick overview of the left-hand navigation here and also the filters at the top. So what we're looking at is the map view. In the left side, you'll notice it says map, and this is a map showing all of Foundation Center's funding data visualized here. There's also the option to look at this data in a list. Search for it using advanced search functionality. There's also charts, which includes trend charts and horizontal bar charts. There's pathways, which is a 6 degrees of separation kind of tool that shows the connections between and among funders and grantees. There's Constellations, which is a network mapping tool, and I'll be showing you more of that today. And there's the option to save your searches. And then just quickly at the top, the filters that we see here, you have the options to show the grants data by the location of the recipient organization. This is what we're showing now. So the orange bubbles here represent recipient organizations by their location. You can also show grants data by the foundation location and by the geographic area that the grants are serving. Then you can also drill down and filter by locations and by subject areas, which is based on the Foundation Center's taxonomy and is how we classify the grants data that we get from 990 tax forms and also from directly submitted to us by foundations. So that's what the subject area here is. And then we have more filters, and under more filters there are options such as population served, type of support, keyword search, years, and additional options as well. So how can you use Foundation Maps in your work? Well, I'll take you through a couple of scenarios, and then I'll show you how foundations and philanthropy networks have customized Foundation Maps. So in this first scenario, let's say you're looking to scan the landscape of funding arts and sports for marginalized youth in Africa. So here we have selected arts and culture, sports, and youth development in our subject area criteria. And we selected youth as the population served. And what you're looking at is a list of the foundations that are funding this kind of work. So basically, we see some, familiar names here. There's Kellogg, there's Gates, there's Ford. And this list is organized by funding amount. So you'll see the highest at the top, and then it descends from there. The list can be sorted, so you can actually sort to look at who's funded smaller amounts. And it can be sorted in a number of different ways by location and number of grants. You can also tab over to look at the recipient organizations that are working in this area and get a sense of who they are. And then the last tab is the grants tab, so you can actually see the grants that have gone for this kind of work and then pull up detailed grant information about them. Let me just go back one slide here. So by clicking on a particular foundation, in this case we've clicked on the State Street Foundation, we pull up more information about them. So you can see their contact information, financial data, mission statement. There's also a tab for their grants and a tab called Subjects. So this is a great way to kind of see who's funding in this area and learn more about them. And then clicking over onto the Subjects tab, what we're looking at here, this is called a windrows chart. So this is actually a circular bar chart, and it shows the breakdown of a particular foundation's funding by subject. So in this case, you can see about $21.9 million has gone to education that this foundation has given. There's been about $8 or so million to youth development, and then to a number of other subjects, employment, agriculture, and so on. And this is their funding represented from 2006 to the present. So this is really a great way to understand a funder's priorities. For example, you can see if a funder is new to a particular area by clicking on years, and then what will appear is a play button, and it will show you a time slider view of the windrows. So you can actually see the subject breakdown year by year and see how it changes from year to year. So it gives you a sense of whether someone has just started funding in education over the last few years, or if they've really been doing this historically, for example, or for youth development or whatever issue you're interested in. And then the nice thing is that you can also, this is actually showing you actual grants data, so it's real grants that they've made. So this distribution tells you, what they've actually funded as opposed to what their intentions might be, or information on their website that, could potentially be outdated. This is really showing you what they've actually been doing, which is really great. And just before I move to the next slide, one more item about the subjects category here is that this is something which is really great to use in presentations. Lots of folks include this. They take a screenshot of it and they include it to presentations to other team members or add it in reports and share it with their colleagues. We're actually working on building a PDF export, so very soon you'll be able to just click a PDF option right here and then pull up a PDF of the windrows for any organization that you're interested in and include that in your presentations. So again, all of this is very helpful for scanning the landscape and getting a sense of who the players are. And from there, switching over to the map view, you can now get a sense of the big picture of funding for a particular part of the world, like Africa, for example. So again, just as a reminder, we're interested in youth development in Africa. So right now, we've zoomed into the continent, and again, we're looking by where the recipient organization is located. So right away, what we can see is that, there's a lot of recipients around kind of Eastern and Southern Africa doing this kind of work, not so much in some parts of Northern Africa. So helpful to give you a big picture view of the landscape this way. And then if you're interested in a particular country, by clicking on these bubbles, you can pull up more information for that particular country. So here we're seeing for South Africa about 76 grants, just over 7 million, have gone to recipients based in South Africa that are doing this kind of youth development work. And now if we switch over to geographic area served, what we're looking at are grants that are actually serving South Africa. So before, while we were looking at recipients based in South Africa, now we're looking at recipients that could be based anywhere in the world, foundations that are making grants to recipients anywhere in the world, but the grants themselves are stating that they are serving South Africa, that that's their main purpose. And again, you can see that we're seeing a lot more activity where the darker green is, so a lot more grants helping youth around the southern part of Africa as opposed to the rest of Africa. So the picture changes slightly when you move from where the recipient is located to where the grant is actually serving. And then again, if you click on South Africa, now we're looking at 93 grants and over 19 million. So a big jump from 7 million, which is what we saw before in terms of recipient location. Now we're looking at over 19 million for the geographic area that is being served. So very helpful for scanning the landscape, and I'm going to move on to the second scenario for Foundation Maps Professional 2.0. This feature is called Constellations, and it's a network mapping tool. Now, the orange bubbles, they're probably a little bit hard to see, and I'll show some more zoomed-in slides in just a minute, but the orange bubbles, again, represent recipients, and the teal bubbles represent foundations. And Constellations is really meant to show you how tight or loose a particular network is. So we're looking at the universe of foundations and recipients that, in this case, are working on youth development in Mississippi. And you can immediately kind of see who's connected to whom and who is at the center of this universe and who's more on the periphery. So it's really a great tool for getting a sense of a particular universe. So zooming into a section of it, there was a funder who was actually interested in this particular use case. So she wanted to know how youth development looks in Mississippi based on the recipients that are located in Mississippi. And she was using this because she wanted to know who is in a particular state and who is funding them. And whether there was anyone funding for what they fund in that particular state. And she was also interested in who's on the periphery and who's kind of at the center of this network. So right away you see Boys and Girls Club here is a huge recipient in this particular universe, and they're very central to it. And then there's a number of different Boys and Girls Clubs as well that are a big part of it. And then also the funders that are playing a big role, Kellogg, Allstate, and so on, Walmart. So they stand out as being very central here, and that's why their names are popped out. And then what you can do is hover over any of the particular bubbles to see where the connections are. So it looks like Walmart Foundation has funded all of these recipients that we're seeing here. And it's a great way to kind of instantly see who's funding whom just by hovering over the bubbles. So the funder in this case who used the tool for this, was very happy that she was able to confirm some of the things that she already knew about this universe, either because she'd read about it or she'd heard from colleagues and so on. But it helped to kind of see that the data could confirm what she already suspected in terms of who the players are. And then she told me that she was also interested in being able to pull up a list and looking at things in a list view, because as great as it is to be able to visualize things, sometimes it's helpful to kind of have a clear list as well of what's going on. So there's something called Tabular that's right kind of next to the bubbles here in Constellations. And when you click on Tabular, you can pull up this list view that, again, is sortable and lists basically all of the organizations that are visualized in Constellations after you've put in your particular search criteria. And so what you see right at the top is who is the most central to this network, and then the next down in terms of how central they are. And then you can sort and by centrality, by the number of connections, by a number of different things. And you can also see who's the least central, who's got the least connections, and so forth. And what we mean, just to kind of elucidate what we mean by central here, is that if one particular organization were removed from this network, if they were the most central, that means that the most other organizations would be affected by them leaving the network. And another great thing about Constellations is that, again, it can be used in presentations to share with a steering committee or with others at your organization. So in this case, there is a PDF built in already, so you can export Constellations as a PDF and then get this really nice looking visual to use in different presentations to staff. So with that, I'll move on to talking about customizing foundation maps to fit your needs and the different ways that foundations and philanthropy networks have customized foundation maps. So starting with, just to explain a little bit what the free e-reporter map is, we at the Foundation Center have a program called the Electronic Grant Reporting Program, and any foundation who submits their grants information to us electronically is eligible to receive a free e-reporter map as a thank you and as incentive for providing their grants information. So what this e-reporter map is a version of foundation maps where the grants information of that particular foundation that has been submitted to us is displayed on the map. So here we're looking at Adirondack Foundation's e-reporter map, and it's just their grants and the ones that they've sent into us electronically. And that's what they've received. And they can actually embed that and put it on their website to display it publicly, or they can just share it internally for whatever use they like. It's great to kind of help you track your grants data and tell the story of your funding. But what some foundations have chosen to do, so in this case the San Francisco Foundation, is to customize and enhance their e-reporter map in a number of ways. So San Francisco Foundation came to us because they were interested in jazzing up their e-reporter map. They wanted it to match their website, so they requested having red bubbles that match the look and feel of their website, and also having this part be gray, just the way that their website looks, and including their logo here at the top. And they wanted their map to focus in on the Bay Area. So when you open it up, instead of seeing a view of the United States, you would see the particular area that they wanted you to see, the Bay Area. And they've used their enhanced e-reporter map to round out their annual report and to tell their funding story in a fun and interactive way. And here is the list view for their map. So again, you notice the bright red color here that they've chosen, and you can see a list of their recipients. And then by clicking on a particular grant, you pull up the grant detail information. So this is information that they've reported to us electronically, and we've added the criteria here. We've coded it with these subjects, this population, type of support, and geographic area served based on the information they've provided. So again, it's just a very nice way of displaying this and sharing it out with the public if you so choose. And so the great thing about this is that they, after showing them the maps, they had a lot of insights about kind of how much funding has gone. So how much funding has gone to the Bay Area that they've made over the last 7 years. So you can see that the bubbles are really spread throughout. And not only that, but they've actually funded areas throughout the U.S. So there's a lot of great distribution, not only in the Bay Area, but they're surprised to see throughout all of the U.S. based on the information that they shared. And that was an example of a fairly simple and easy way to customize the free e-reporter map and to leverage that map to show off one particular foundation's funding. So I'm going to move on to a different example. Here we're looking at a fully customized map that involved a custom taxonomy and custom data sets. So with support from Blue Shield, McCormick, and San Diego grantmakers, we created a fully custom map that shows how much funding has gone to active military veterans and their families since 2001. This is the first custom map we built on the Foundation Maps platform before the subscription-based platform had been released. And having a common language is key for collaborating and coordinating effectively. So what happened is our research team worked with a group of advisors who are deeply familiar with this field to come up with a custom taxonomy. And you can see the taxonomy here, again, under the subject area. So it goes down to 3 levels, and in this case, it's no longer kind of the standard Foundation Center taxonomy, but it's special just for this map. So we're looking at, it's broken into services for active military and veterans, and services for their families. And then within the first category, there's different related categories such as health, employment services, education, legal services, housing, and so forth. And then under health, we go even deeper into medical research, mental health, medical care, and so on. So really a lot of work goes into crafting and creating a custom taxonomy because we want to ensure that it speaks to the field and the people who will be using it. So after creating the taxonomy, our data was then mapped to this taxonomy so that when you search for employment or legal services for military and veterans, you see the relevant funding data for those criteria. We also customized the population served categories as well. So you'll see a slightly shorter and different list here than the typical list in Foundation Maps Professional 2.0. This is under More Filters is where you can find population served. And then you'll notice the other criteria as well. There's a grant amount range that users can choose from, grant years, filter by keyword, filter by grant maker type, and that includes things like corporate giving programs, community foundations, independent foundations, and so forth. Our funders on this project were very much interested in using data to improve philanthropy, and this map lives on the Council on Foundations Veterans Exchange platform, where funders who are funding these types of issues are already coming together to discuss the different issues and approaches and to collaborate and coordinate their efforts. So that's where the map currently lives. And the way people are using it is to identify gaps in funding is one approach. So for example, here I've actually selected housing and homeless services for veterans as the criteria by which to filter the data. And what we're seeing is that there's a great distribution across the U.S. For this particular subject category and for this work. But right away, a few states stand out as not getting any orange bubbles on them. So we see Montana and Arkansas actually don't show nonprofits that are getting funded to do this kind of homeless and housing services work for veterans. And it's not until you see the data visualized that these gaps become apparent. So that's one way that we've heard from a lot of different folks that it's really useful to be able to map it and visualize it to instantly see where the gaps are. And just one other item about this map before moving on to the next example. A key insight that one of our funders drew from the map was that there are only a handful of large funders in the space. So most funding for veterans and active military is coming from small foundations. This is a critical insight that both foundations and nonprofits can benefit from. It's key for nonprofits to know this in order to tailor their asks and to apply to the right funders. And then just in the same way, it's key for funders to know this if they want to help raise awareness and raise funding to this area. So again, a lot of different kinds of insights can be drawn by using these tools and really kind of digging in and playing around with them. So moving to the last and third example of a way that we've customized foundation maps. This is actually a sneak peek of a custom map that we developed with support from Bernard Van Leer Foundation that will be launching later this summer. This map is for foundations, NGOs, policymakers, and other stakeholders who want to know how much funding has gone to early childhood development in East Africa. It is a map with a custom taxonomy, just the way the previous map had a custom taxonomy, a custom data set, It also has additional layers of data. There is bilateral and multilateral funding data that's shown, and also country-level indicator data. So in this case, the orange bubbles here represent the bilateral and multilateral funding data. The green bubbles represent foundation data. And then the blue shading represents one of 3 indicators that people can choose from. So foundations can use this map to understand what peers are doing, to identify gaps in funding again, and to find partners for collaboration. And the 3 indicators that are represented by the blue shading can be overlaid on the map to contextualize the funding for early childhood development in these particular countries and to help determine where the gaps are. So in this case, we are looking at the GDP indicator. And the criteria that I've put in is early education and nutrition. So again, right away, just by looking at the map, we see one particular country stand out, in this case Somalia, as having the lowest GDP, since it's the lightest blue one, and also low funding for nutrition and early education. So very low funding from foundations, as it's got a fairly small green bubble, but also somewhat low funding from bilaterals and multilaterals as well. So that's just kind of a quick way to use the map and then draw some information from it. Another way that we've heard folks are planning to use it is by selecting a particular country that they plan to travel to, whether because they're interested in starting an initiative there or already have one but are looking for partners to collaborate with. And so in this case, they can use the location drop down here and select a particular country. Here we selected Kenya. And by clicking on the bubbles, they can pull up more information about Kenya. They can see the indicator. We have the mortality rate indicator selected here and how much funding has gone to Kenya. And by clicking on See Details, they can pull up a list of the foundations who are funding initiatives related to whatever they're interested in for early childhood development in Kenya. Also recipient organizations that are working there, and particular grants that have been made, as well as disbursements that have been made to Kenya. So right away we see different foundations who have made grants to Kenya, and it's not only ones based in Kenya, of course. There's a mix, ones in Australia, England, the Netherlands, a lot of different places. So what's great is for anyone who is, planning an initiative or looking to travel to that country, they can pull up a list of who's funded there and then find colleagues that they can talk to about what, kind of strategy they've employed, and just to get information about what's going on the ground. And as I mentioned, there's also the bilateral multilateral aid tab that they can choose from. So again, just as a way to get more detailed information about the disbursements that are going to this particular country. And this is an example of the details view for a particular disbursement. So the donor country was Germany, and they made, looks like, over $3 million disbursement to Kenya in 2011 for early education. And then there's a description of what exactly that was for. So whether you're using data to inform your own grant making, or to make the case to your board, or to find additional funding sources, you have a lot of options for how to visualize and filter that data with Foundation Maps Professional 2.0 and with customizing it via enhanced e-reporter and custom maps. So if you're not already subscribed to Foundation Maps, I encourage you to go check it out and take it for a test drive using the free trial. You can do so by going to maps.foundationcenter.org. And then if you're interested in more information about the different custom options that I went over today, or want to see them for yourself, you can access them by going to either of these 2 links here. And of course, if you have any questions, you can contact us at maps@foundationcenter.org. So with that, I will turn it over to Q&A. So I encourage everyone to please type in their questions into the Q&A box on the screen, and we'll start taking questions one at a time. So as folks are doing that, we're just going to look over and see what questions have been coming in and start reading them out. So we're just going to take a minute to look at the questions that are coming in. Okay, great. It looks like we have a number of questions coming in. So my colleague Erin is going to read them out, and we'll answer them. And as we're doing that, please feel free to keep typing in any questions that come up for you, so that we can answer them.
Okay, great. So one of the first questions that came in is what time period the grants and foundation maps cover?
Great question. So the time period in Foundation Maps Professional 2.0, the subscription version of Foundation Maps, is 2006 to present. And so for the custom maps that we've worked on, the time period can be customized according to the need of the particular client. So I think I mentioned that for the veterans map that we did, it was 2003 to present, so there was more historical data in that one, just because that was what the funders were interested in. And the early childhood development map is actually 2008 to present, so there's less historical data. People just wanted a shorter snapshot of more of the recent and timelier data for that particular map. So yeah, it's really, it can be customized according to your needs, but for the main platform, it's 2006 to present.
All right. Second question is, can maps draw on data and display on the county level and street level?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I can actually do a live demo to just quickly show that to everyone. So let me just move over here to the live version of Foundation Maps. So the quick answer is yes, it can. So again, we're in the live version of Foundation Maps. If you switch from the Showing Grants By from the default recipient view to Area Served, you will then be looking at green shading that represents the geographic area that the grants are serving. So here we're looking at the world view, and notice that the geoscale is set to country, so you can see how the grants are falling out for particular countries. We're looking at the full data set, so a particular subject hasn't been selected, but I can just select one now for the sake of the demonstration. So I'll pick education, and notice how the shading changed, and then the numbers at the top here have changed as well after we filtered our criteria. So by clicking on any of the countries, you can pull up more information on that particular country about the number of grants, the total value, the number of funders and recipients, and then from there pull up a grants list. But I know we're interested in not just country level information, but kind of drilling in deeper. So I will type in Texas in this case for the search. And so now we're looking at Texas, and the geoscale here is set to county. So we're looking at county level information for Texas for grants that are education related that are serving these particular counties. So if you click on any of the counties, you can get more information here. We're looking at Harris County, and we're seeing the funding that has gone to that particular area. Again, you can pull up grants list from here. And if you switch to city, you will get city level information. So again, this time it switches over to bubbles to represent the different cities. And if you click on any of the bubbles, it'll tell you, so this is Houston. And again, you can get more information from here. So that's how it works for the United States. But if we were to do a country outside of the United States, so for example, I'll type in Kenya, the options that you have there are just city. So there won't be county or province level options. That's something that we're working on down the line to include, but just because of the technical nature of it, it was very tricky to kind of include it in this first round. So geographic area served as a feature that we've actually released fairly recently, which is why it says beta. So we figured it out for the United States, but there's still a little bit work left for outside of the United States. But the great thing is that you can get city-level information on the grants data. So here we're looking at grants for education that are serving Nairobi. And then you can kind of pull up a grants list from here for more information. So that was basically a quick overview of how geographic area served works and the different levels that you can drill down into. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. The next question is, you mentioned to receive the e-reporter map, we would need to submit to you our grants information. What does this entail exactly, and can you elaborate a little more?
Sure. So for foundations who are not already electronically reporting to the Foundation Center, we encourage you to send in your grants information to us. And what that entails is basically there's a number of ways that you can do it. The easiest way is that we provide you with an Excel template, and then you fill out the fields with your grants information. So basically the fields range from, the name of the recipient organization for each individual grant that your organization has made, their address, where they're located, a description of what the grant was for, grant amount, the year it was made. So that kind of just very basic information. And then we use that information to code it and classify it according to the taxonomy that you see here. And then to pull it into different kinds of products and research reports. So it'll show up in Foundation Maps. It will be showing in aggregate in some of our research reports and so forth. So that was one option, is to use the Excel template that we can provide you with. Another option is to, if you have a participating software vendor, so a participating grants management software provider, we have a number of partners. You can do a very simple export from your grants management software and then just email that to us. So it's already preset the fields and the information that we need for particular software, grants management software providers. And you would just export it and send it to us. And then after that, we would look over the information, see if we have any questions for you, load it, clean it up, load it, and put it into our databases, and you would get a link with your free individual e-reporter map. And so if you have any questions about this whole process or are interested in signing up for it, you can either email egrants@foundationcenter.org, so egrants@foundationcenter.org, or go to, I'm going to try looking up the link this way. I don't know it off the top of my head, but Googling it should get you there. Yep. So foundationcenter.org/grantmakers/e-reporting. So this will actually take you to our electronic reporting program page, and it provides all the information that I just kind of summarized here. So how you can get the free e-reporter map, what you need to submit, the template, the Excel template is also there, and a list of who the participating software providers are. So again, it's just a link right up here.
Great. Another question that came in was, can you talk a little bit about the cost for custom maps?
Sure. So the cost for custom maps can really range. So for example, the first map that I showed, the San Francisco Foundation's enhanced e-reporter map with the red and the different colors and logos. So those are easier customizations. They're more straightforward, and it's not as costly. So somewhere, a couple of thousand, kind of that range for an enhanced e-reporter map. And then other kinds of custom maps that are really more involved with where there's a custom taxonomy, a custom data set, a very custom look and feel. If there's, additional data streams that someone would like pulled in, indicator data and so forth, that can really start anywhere from $25,000 up. So it's really a range of different options.
Okay, great. The next question is from someone whose work focuses on sub-Saharan Africa. In your last example of early childhood education in East Africa, this includes information about funding from a German entity. Does the Foundation Center information include information from other donor organizations, for example, in Europe?
Yeah, so basically, let me go back to my slides here. So basically, we have information on what U.S. foundations are funding, but also more and more we have information on foundations based outside of the U.S. So there's, let me go back to the live map here, actually. So I'll switch to the foundation view. So here, this shows over 38,000 foundations. So again, this is from 2006 to present. So this is the number of foundations that we have information on that's displaying in foundation maps. And you'll notice, a lot are based in the U.S. because that's where historically we've been collecting data from. But there are also many in Europe, and in Asia, some in Africa, and in South America as well. And we're constantly growing this data set and collecting more and more information, so you'll be seeing new information from foundations on a regular basis. The multilateral and bilateral donor organizations information that we have specifically for the early childhood development map, that was one of the custom sort of data sets that we'd incorporated. So we got that information from the OECD, and then we downloaded it and cleaned it up and mapped it to our custom taxonomy and pulled it in for that particular map. So you won't see bilateral, multilateral disbursements in the kind of overall foundation maps professional 2.0 platform, but it's something we can do as a custom project. And then just kind of zooming in, since you mentioned Germany, you'll see that we have information here on a lot of different foundations based all over Europe, including Germany. And just to note that we refresh the data on a weekly basis in foundation maps. So every week there's new grants data coming in, and it gets loaded and shows up in foundation maps. Okay, so one other question that we got had to do with where we get all of the data that goes into foundation maps and other products and research reports that we have. So basically, what we do is we collect data from 990 tax forms and also get data directly submitted through the e-reporting program that I mentioned earlier by foundations. So we have close to 1,000 foundations that e-report their data to us, and then the rest of the data we we get from 990 forms. There's a little bit of a time lag from the 990 data, but we make up for it by getting much timelier data from Foundations who e-report. So again, just encouraging everyone to e-report their data so that the information in Foundation Maps can be as timely and comprehensive as possible. And in terms of the 990 data, once we get it, we load it into our system, and again, we clean it, we classify it. We have a huge data team. So I used to be in the data department, and it's close to 40 people in our data department who work on cleaning and classifying and coding the data that we get in, and they do a phenomenal job with it. So that's how we can then represent it in these different ways and visualize it. It helps to be able to have a common language that we apply to the data so that, you know, if one foundation calls something one thing and another one calls it something else, but really it's the same thing. It's just a different naming or different word choices. We can make sure to standardize it and then be able to show it under early childhood education or under whatever category is the relevant category. A lot of the time we focus on the description, and that's where we pull out a lot of the relevant information to figure out what is the correct subject, the population served, the geographic area. So for the foundations who e-report to us, they tend to write very kind of not long, but descriptions that really provide rich information about what each grant is for, and that's very helpful to us. And we also separately categorize the recipient organizations and have a whole database where we keep track of the kinds of work that they do so that we can make sure to apply that to our visualizations as well. So I think we have a few more questions that came in.
The next one is, how does the system work for geographic area served if I have a multi-pick list? So for example, the grant serves both New York and California.
So if a grant serves, that's a great question, by the way. If a grant serves two areas, like New York and California, it will show up under both of those areas. So again, just to go back to area served here, and I'll type in United States. And select state just to kind of show the geographic distribution across the different states. So for example, let's say there's one grant, it's serving New York. So when you click on, it's serving New York and California. When you click on New York and you pull up a grants list of all of the grants that have a geographic focus of New York, you'll see the grant in there and you'll see it in the totals here. When you click on California, you'll also see it listed here in California, and you'll see it in the totals. When you pull up a list, it'll show up there. So in a sense, it does get double counted because we don't want to say that it should be split in a certain way when we don't know what that split is. It might not be 50-50. It might be that 20% of the grant is serving New York and 80% is serving California, but we have no way of knowing that necessarily. So instead, it does get double counted in this way. However, in the summary boxes here at the top, it's only counted once. So whereas, clicking in, it will show up in more than one place because we want to make sure that it's captured in all the places that it's serving. In terms of the totals not being double counted, the ones at the top here will show the true total. So there won't be any double counting up here at the top. So those are all the questions that we have time for, but thanks everyone for taking part in this webinar today. And again, if you have any other questions that we didn't have a chance to address today, or if other questions arise later on, you can feel free to email us at maps@foundationcenter.org. And please, take a moment to visit maps.foundationcenter.org to test out the application, take it for a free trial, and to let us know what you think. So thank you so much for participating.